So you've just arrived in Leipzig and you've got a little time to kill before your connecting train. What do? Well, if you're even halfway interested in railways, you might want to take a look around this particular station. In terms of area, this is Europe's largest railway terminus, but it's no longer the one with the most platforms. However, one of them does have a bit of a secret. It's an open secret, but I didn't know about this myself until just a few weeks ago.
How did it get so big? Well, first of all, Leipzig itself was an important city for trade and industry and an important hub for international rail travel. But in the early days, each railway company built its own stations, making transfers really inconvenient as terminuses were scattered about the city. To make life easier for passengers, 4 of these stations would be replaced by a new terminus to be built jointly by the Royal Saxon State Railways and the Prussian State Railways, each with its own entrance and facilities. And it was also to be grand, a cathedral of industry and technology. Well, there's no doubt they succeeded. It was thoroughly renovated and modernized in the 1990s, but in a way that preserved everything that made it truly awesome. If you're ever passing through, take the time to visit Starbucks or the bookshop. I promise you, you won't be disappointed. But bringing it up to modern standards meant providing lots of parking for cars. Since not all of the platforms were really needed, this gave planners a little space, and originally the plan was to build a large multi-storey parking facility. But that meant demolishing part of the station, so, after some protests, a different solution was proposed.
The idea was to avoid defacing the east wall of the station, and instead to use the space left by the platforms that were no longer required to actually park cars on.
And under the platform. Problem solved, station saved, right?
The problem is, though, that while it all still looks very beautiful on the outside, on the inside it is incredibly ugly. And so they came up with a brilliant idea. Screen the sight of these ugly cars from the rest of the station with, well, a railway museum.
Yes, track 24 boasts 5 historic locomotives just sitting there waiting to be admired. 3 of them are early electric locomotives of the 1930s and 40s, currently being restored by a group of volunteers, mostly Deutsche Bahn employees who, I assume, were fulfilling their childhood dreams when they applied for their jobs. These locomotives were all confiscated by the USSR as war reparations, but were returned to Germany in 1952. This diesel-electric train was built in the 1930s based on a successful prototype that had been called the Flying Hamburger, a name which probably sounded cool back then, but not so much now. In their day, they were the fastest trains in the world. This particular one was, in 1960, turned into a special train for government use and is the last remaining of its type. But of course, the exhibit that really attracts the most people is this, but it's actually the youngest of them all. It was designed during the Second World War, a simpler version of an already existing type that could be built quickly and easily. 6,000 of them were built between 1942 and 1945, and although apparently a few of them were destroyed within days of being built, this was, after all, a very destructive war, those that survived were so reliable that they were still in use in East Germany right up until after reunification. This particular model lasted until 1986. When it broke down, there were so many of this type still operational that there was no point in repairing it. Really, if you're ever stranded at Leipzig Hauptbahnhof, you at least have something to look at. Meanwhile, though, remember that these old trains are being looked after and restored by volunteers, so please do what you can to support their work.